Hello, I am the Unfeeling. I found a post about fascism on Jezebel's GroupThink, which I really hope is just named that for pure satire, and when I took a look, I found that it almost perfectly describes modern feminism. If you'd like to read the text for this video, the link to it will be in the description. Before I get into this, I am simply poking fun at feminism. This article on fascism has already been thoroughly debunked. These are not real signs on fascism, at least across the board. I'm simply using the so-called characteristics as a way to open up a discussion about various topics, such as feminist rhetoric, agendas, propaganda, and perhaps, feminism isn't the best way to go about making change in our society. In truth, these so-called characteristics are common among movements and governments as a whole. Again, I'm simply poking fun at feminism. If it does well, I'll look at other movements to poke fun at them too. For the sake of this comparison, I will keep most of my references to Jezebel. I need to do this to show that while Jezebel's groupthink seems to be a place where Jezebel's community members can make their own posts, they indirectly show how Jezebel is pretty fascist. Following the link from GroupThink, we see a post titled 14 Defining Characteristics of Fascism. I want to go through them and see how many characteristics Jezebel has. With that out the way, the first characteristic on the list talks about being very nationalist. While Jezebel isn't really about nationalism, it certainly is about feminism. What I found striking about this is that it specifically mentions mottos and slogans. Modern feminist seems to be all about mottos and slogans with things such as ban bossy, yes all women, and fuck hate. Seriously, what is a hashtag if not a modern slogan to push a message? Jezebel isn't completely guilty of this, at least not at first glance. To Jezebel's credit, they actually call out the bullshit of ban bossy, saying women should empower themselves instead of trying to shun away a word. Unfortunately, they also use that article as a way to express that there aren't more female CEOs because of gender bias, which there is no hard evidence that's clearly the case. Men and women, as a group, have different interests and priorities. It's far more likely that there aren't more female CEOs because there are a lot less women that want to be one. After all, we don't see people pushing for gender equality in female-dominated fields, or fields where men are doing general labor work. Keep in mind, it's against the law to deny someone a promotion based on sex. So ladies, if you get denied a promotion and can prove it was discrimination, take them to court and make the company lose millions. Then use that money to build your own company. However, if you can't prove it was discrimination, why would you assume it was? After all, there wouldn't be enough evidence for it. Even worse, Jezebel seems to think bossy just means someone who leads. They quote Amy Poehler, who claims bossy isn't a pejorative term to her at all. To her, it just means someone that's passionate, ambitious, and doesn't mind leading. Well, that's a leader, not someone that's bossy. Looking at the definition of bossy, you may think the first definition, fond of giving people orders, isn't a bad thing. However, look at some of the synonyms. Domineering, overbearing, imperious, authoritarian, dictatorial. Bossy behavior is nothing to praise, so while Jezebel doesn't agree with banning the word, they do want to claim it and make it their own to try to make that kind of behavior a good thing, somehow. Jezebel called out fuck hate for being a for-profit business. However, they didn't have a problem with fuck hate's message, which was full of fallacies and myths that have been debunked. I'll link to Teal Deer explaining that in depth. They didn't care that it exploited children, who likely don't have a clue what they're talking about, as political ammo. No, Jezebel's issue with fuck hate was that it was just an advertisement to get people to buy their shirts. In fact, the title of the article is Little Girls Gussing for Feminism would be great if it weren't an ad. Clearly Jezebel is all for fuck hate's slogan, just doesn't like the intent behind it. However, there is one more hashtag that Jezebel was in full support of, yes all women. Before I say the next bit, allow me to say this, no, I don't think the behavior that many women have to deal with is excusable. Harassment is not excusable. Threats are not excusable. Criminal actions are not excusable. But what I really want to ask is this: is it really sexism? Sexism has a real meaning, which is prejudice, stereotyping, or discrimination on the basis of sex. So when the screen-capped women in the Jezebel article, "Yes, all women" trend is uprooting everyday misogyny one tweet at a time, are complaining about being accused of being too sensitive. Every female she knows has a story about men feeling entitled to their body, saying that girls quote-unquote, know it's safer to give a guy a fake number, Twitter having a bad harassment system. A police officer said people won't help if a woman is in danger of being assaulted, Robin Thicke is applauded and Miley Cyrus is censored, and how sexual harassment and death threats have been said to be their own fault. Is it really people being sexists, or is it people just being jerks? Never mind the fact that men get about the same amount of online harassment, outside of stalking and sexual harassment, but those two types of harassment affect men too. Never mind that the so-called entitlement men feel for women's bodies could be explained with a strong desire to date and or sleep with them, which is not synonymous. Never mind that saying a male could get violent means he likely will, so just give him a wrong number, is actually stereotyping men as violent against women when women are just as violent towards men, which by definition would be sexist. Never mind that Twitter's harassment system is gender neutral. Never mind that a simple video will show that people are very quick to jump at the defense of women, but actually laugh at the abuse of men. Never mind that people can, and will blame others for their own misfortune, regardless of gender. In conclusion, the complaints of "yes, all women" aren't necessarily sexist, but more likely actions of specific individuals that had something against those individual women. I think people in our current culture are far too quick to label others something that most people believe is very wrong, such as sexist. When you label everyone as sexist, especially because you have your own agenda to push, the word begins to lose its meaning. I will make a video series about feminist rhetoric. Besides, I'm pretty sure if asked, men could give you similar complaints. I know I could. They usually just don't bother us nearly as much. If feminists really want to work towards gender equality, it would really do them some good to focus on the core of the issues, since oftentimes, it affects both men and women, instead of making it a gendered issue as if it only affects women. If you're for gender equality and want to get rid of harassment, instead of focusing specifically on sexual harassment that disproportionately affects women, you could focus on fighting all forms of harassment. That way, both men and women benefit as a whole. It's just a thought. If you like my content and would like to support my channel, please consider donating to my Patreon. It's completely optional and all funds go into creating more frequent content with higher quality.